So I've made a collection. I've got 12 images in it. I want to print them. I grab my collection with those images in it. I click on print up at the top. And what I need to do is I need to lay out my page and my images to all fit. Good? So what I'm going to do is by default, it's going to be on single image contact sheet. And we want to use that. And after that, I'm going to shrink that down. And I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom, which is print job. And under print job, I could print directly, but since we're not actually printing anything and we're saving it as a JPEG image, we want to switch this to, say, JPEG file. A lot of options are not going to be there if you don't do this first. Okay, so JPEG file, and it changes some of this layout. And what I want to do is I want to create custom file dimensions. And what that will allow me to do is it'll allow me to make my image horizontal instead of vertical. Right? By default, it sets up as a vertical 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And what I really want is I want to match my screen aspect ratio, which is, I want to say 11 by 17. No, wait, 16 by 9, right? That would be our normal video. I don't know. We'll see what it looks like. All right, so if I type in 9 and 16, 16 and 9 to make it a horizontal. Does that look like it's going to match our screen? And if I haven't said this before, if you click on these arrows, it'll make all these things disappear so that you can kind of see it. Gosh, it feels like it's almost wider than that, huh? All right, well, I'm going to just say, oh, it didn't actually take my 9. Well, it didn't make a difference. Okay. All right, so whatever. We'll go with 16 by 9. That's all we really need to figure out in this bar. So I'm going to shrink that down, and then I'll go back up to the top. There's an option to rotate or zoom to fill, which is going to crop our images, so we don't want to do that. There is rotate to fit, which if we were passing it around as a piece of paper, that would make sense because we just rotate the piece of paper. But since they're all going to be on the screen up here, we probably want to turn that off. There's repeat one photo per page. We don't want that. And there's a stroke border, which just puts a line around it. I don't normally do that, but you could if you want. And I'm going to shrink image settings down. So now we can focus on our layout. So for layout, the important thing is we try to fit 12 images on our page. So I'm going to do 4 columns and 3 rows, which would be 3 and 4. And I only have one image selected. So in order to get all my images selected on the bar down here, the easiest thing to do is Command A or Control A if you're on a PC. And that will drop them all in there. Okay. Now, I'm going to kind of skip over our margins and our cell spacing real quick, and we'll come back to that. Guides are things that do not show up in the final file, but they're helpful. So rulers, page bleed, all these sort of things that disappear when I click this box, they don't print either way, or they don't save to the file either way. They're just helpful for layout. So I'm going to turn those off. And then under page, we have the option to do an identity plate and photo info. The most important one is photo info. And what that does is it puts the file name underneath each picture. Okay? That can be really helpful because you might have 2 or 3 photos that look fairly similar and you want help deciding which one is the best. And if you can just write down the file number, then you know which file to go back and edit instead of us saying, oh, the one up over here or there or whatever looks great, and you don't remember which one it is, and you go back and you edit it, and then like after 10 minutes of editing, you go, oh, that was the wrong picture. So having that file info lets us talk about one particular file and identify it, and you write it down. Okay, so I strongly encourage that. And then the other thing that most students will do is what's called an identity plate, which by default puts student in here, but you can go in and edit it and just put your name in. And what it allows us to do is to kind of like move it around, shrink it down, and you could put in like some blank space. and make it a low opacity so that if it overlays with the photo, it doesn't distract. You don't have to do this, but it just helps us remember your name. So your call. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up to the margins and the cell spacing. So what these control is whether or not there is space around the sides of your photo. So it pushes them in or whatnot. And what I would say is for viewing on the screen up there, it's just helpful to have a little cell spacing. So I'd do like a 1/4 inch and a 1/4 inch. Oops. Just to space things out a little bit and give them some breathing room. That makes sense? So I don't really care if you add margins, but some people do. Margins are more helpful when we're printing on a piece of paper to have space to write in, but having a little bit of cell spacing around them. Final thing, I guess I skipped over that can be, some people like, is page background color, which you can change to be like a middle gray, dark gray, or even black, depending on what your preference is. Having a darker color background makes it so the images themselves stand out better on screen. If we were printing, we wouldn't want to waste the ink, but you could do whatever your preference is here. Leave it white, that's fine. Make it gray, make it black, all good. All right, sound good? All right, now when we're happy with what we've got, we're gonna go, we can shrink this out, we can shrink that out, and we can go to print to file. And what it's gonna do is it's going to let us give it a name. And actually what I'm gonna suggest we do is make a new folder and call it something like proof sheet. I might sometimes say contact sheet because that's what we would call it when we were printing in the darkroom. We'd actually be shining light through negatives that were in contact with the piece of paper. So if I ever say that difference, please just understand I mean proof sheet. And what I would do is I would label it something like, well, I probably would put your name in it, right? Proof sheet and then project 2. Or whatever the project is, okay? And that way, when we can do is we can drop this into a folder to share and find it easily after the fact. Oh! All right, I'm being a dummy. What I meant to do is to just make a folder that was called proof sheet. And then give it a name up here inside of that. And that way I can find it easily. So I didn't want to do, oh, now I messed it all up. This folder should be here. This folder should be gone. And it should be PROOF, not PROF. Oh, but now my picture, now I lost my, now I lost my file because I deleted it. So I'm going to do that one more time. Now, it'll do its little taskbar, and then when it's done, hopefully it shows up here. Otherwise, I messed something up. Hey, there it is. All right, and so now when we open this up, it'll open in preview, and we can go to view, enter full screen, and we can kind of see our images fairly easily. Make sense? So that'll be our plan to share this way for next class. Go ahead. Let me real quick stop.